When I look back at the period when I was buried in debt, I can hardly believe I'm talking about the same person. Back then, money felt uncontrollable, slipping through my fingers no matter how hard I tried to hold on to it. I lived paycheck to paycheck, with more debt than I could manage, and the start of each month was a mix of hope and anxiety. I kept telling myself that things would improve sometime, but that sometime never came. It all started with seemingly small things. A credit card I used for emergencies, a phone installment I deserved, a personal loan to cover other expenses. I didn't notice when it all added up. For a few years, I believed that this is life. Everyone has debts, everyone pays installments, everyone waits for their paycheck to breathe. Until one day, I woke up with my account blocked over a minor overdue payment and realized I didn't even have money for food. That was the moment I acknowledged, without excuses or denial. I was broke. The first real step toward change was taking full responsibility. I no longer blamed the system, low salaries, rising prices, or bad luck. I told myself, it's my fault. I chose this. I have to fix it. From that moment on, I stopped complaining and started acting. I took an old notebook and wrote everything down. Every debt, every interest, every due date. It was painful to see the total amount. It was larger than I thought. But at least I had a clear picture. I organized my debts from smallest to largest and decided I would pay them off one by one. I promised myself I wouldn't take any new loans, no matter how hard it got. The next decision was to reduce expenses to a minimum. I recorded every purchase and quickly realized how much money I had wasted on things that brought no value. Coffee in town, food delivery, little comfort purchases. I started a simple rule. If I couldn't pay cash without affecting my budget, I didn't buy it. I sold things I didn't use. Clothes, electronics, even furniture. It wasn't easy, but it was liberating. As expenses decreased, I directed every extra penny toward debt repayment. Every amount counted. Seeing a debt slowly decrease was motivating. The first time I fully paid off a loan, I felt a wave of freedom. I realized I could do more than I had imagined. At the same time, I started learning about money seriously. Personal finance books, podcasts, and following people who explained saving, investing, and budgeting. I realized financial independence isn't luck, it's a skill. I understood quickly that reducing expenses wasn't enough. My salary alone couldn't create visible progress. So I leveraged my skills for side work. Small projects, freelancing, anything that could bring extra income. Every extra dollar had immense value because I used it consciously. After a few months, I applied the emergency fund principle. I aimed to save the equivalent of 3 months' expenses, so an unexpected problem wouldn't throw me back into debt. It took almost a year, but having that safety net completely changed my mindset. For the first time, money worked for me, not the other way around. Eventually, I paid off all my debts. It wasn't dramatic or instantaneous, but it was profound. Closing the last loan felt like finally breathing freely. For the first time in years, everything I earned was mine. Instead of paying for past mistakes, I could use money for the future. I then completely changed my financial habits. I set a monthly budget and applied the 50-30-20 rule. 50% for necessities, 30% for wants, 20% for savings and investments. Percentages weren't always exact, but the principle gave me direction. It forced me to think with intention, not impulse. Next, I discovered investing. At first, the idea was intimidating. It seemed reserved for the wealthy. But I gradually learned about index funds, compound interest, and investing small, consistent amounts. I understood that financial independence doesn't come from a high salary, but from using money wisely. My first steps were small, almost symbolic, just to learn. I made mistakes, lost a little, but gained valuable experience. I grasped the basics. Never invest money needed short-term, ignore hot tips, and be consistent. I automated monthly contributions to my investment account, treating it like a mandatory bill for my future. At the same time, I embraced simplicity. I no longer bought to impress others or measure myself against them. I realized true freedom isn't about how much you have, but how little you depend on. After a few years, things changed radically. I no longer lived stressed about the next month. I had savings, investments, And most importantly, control. When income temporarily dropped, I didn't panic. The emergency fund was there. It proved that patient, consistent decisions work. Gradually, passive income grew. Interest, dividends, and projects generating money without constant involvement. I finally understood true financial independence, not avoiding work, but not being forced to work to survive. Work became a choice, not an obligation. I also learned to set clear financial goals, not just saving in general, but for specific purposes: a fund, a property, a vacation. Money without direction is wasted. I created a simple system. Each month, I reviewed income, expenses, and progress toward each goal. I treated myself like a small business that had to be profitable and sustainable. Looking back, the process was long but transformative. The biggest change wasn't financial, it was mental. I learned to see money as a tool, not a source of anxiety or pride. Discipline mattered more than luck. Small, consistent progress beats grand plans abandoned halfway. Today, I live debt-free with a solid portfolio of savings and investments. I don't live extravagantly, but I have something far more valuable: peace of mind. If I lost my active income tomorrow, I could live for years without stress. That is true freedom, not a magic number in the bank, but the ability to choose. I've realized financial independence isn't a destination, it's a journey. Life and the economy change, but principles remain. Spend less than you earn, invest the difference, and never stop learning. One of the most important lessons I've learned is that you don't have to wait for the perfect moment to start. I began at a bad moment, with debt, stress, and zero knowledge. Waiting for ideal conditions would have left me in the same place. The path to financial freedom begins exactly where you are, with what you have and what you know. Debt wasn't the real problem. It was the habits creating it. Change your behavior and results follow. It was painful but liberating. Circumstances change only after mindset changes. Now, I view numbers in my accounts or investment charts with gratitude, not pride. For each day I chose discipline, for every small, meaningful decision. Financial freedom didn't come overnight. It was built, decision by decision. Once I paid interest and penalties. Today, I earn interest and dividends. Once, I feared every bill. Today, bills are normal, not a threat. The difference isn't in how much I earn, but in how I think. If I had to sum up my journey in one sentence, I went from being a slave to making money work for me. Not by magic, but by consistency. The most important change is that I can now talk about money without shame. Many struggle silently. If my story helps even one person change their relationship with money, all hardships made sense. Financial independence isn't just numbers. It's sleeping peacefully, knowing you're prepared. It's saying no to a toxic job, taking a break without collapsing financially, and choosing life over mere survival. That is true wealth. My journey was full of mistakes, doubts, and exhaustion. Debt taught humility, discipline taught patience, and financial freedom taught gratitude. Now I know anyone can change their financial direction if willing to be honest, disciplined, and consistent. You don't have to be born rich, just refuse to remain a prisoner. I was once stressed, lost, and indebted, but I became free by facing reality. The greatest lesson: money doesn't bring happiness, but lack of it steals peace. Managing it with respect and awareness brings not just stability, but balance. Today, I define myself not by money, but by the freedom it provides. If I could speak to my past self, drowning in debt, I'd say, don't be afraid. You can change everything if you start now.